The auditorium buzzed with anticipation as Dr. Ava Caldwell stepped onto the stage, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders, a confident smile playing on her lips. She took a deep breath, her piercing blue eyes scanning the sea of faces eager to witness history in the making. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the future of human potential, nanobot therapy. A holographic display materialized above the stage, showcasing the intricate design of the microscopic machines. Ava's voice rang out, clear and proud, as she detailed their capabilities. The audience listened, captivated by her eloquence and the promise of a world without disease or disability. As the presentation drew to a close, Ava felt a surge of pride. Years of relentless work had led to this moment, and she savored it, knowing that she and her team, including her dear friend Dr. Rajiv Patel, had made a difference. But in the days that followed, whispers of complications began to surface. Ava dismissed them as isolated incidents, a natural part of any groundbreaking medical advancement. Yet, as the reports grew more frequent and alarming, she couldn't ignore the creeping sense of unease. One evening, as Ava pored over the latest data in her lab, Rajiv entered, his warm brown eyes filled with concern. "Ava, I think we need to talk about the error reports. There's something odd about them, something unsettling." She sighed, rubbing her temples. "I know, Rajiv. I've been going through them myself, but I can't seem to find any pattern, any commonality between the cases." As they delved deeper into the data, a seemingly innocuous coding error caught their attention. A simple miscalculation, easily overlooked, but one that had the potential to wreak havoc on the nanobots' programming. Ava felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the implications. If this error corrupts the nanobots' instructions, they could mutate, grow uncontrollably. Rajiv's eyes widened in horror. And if they integrate with human tissue as intended, the consequences could be catastrophic. Their fears were confirmed when the first images of the infected began to emerge. Once ordinary men and women transformed into grotesque, twisted shells of their former selves, their bodies contorted and distorted by the rampant growth of the corrupted nanobots. Ava stared at the holographic images in disbelief, her heart heavy with guilt and sorrow. The weight of her responsibility pressed down on her, threatening to crush her very spirit. "What have I done?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Rajiv placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We'll find a solution, Ava. Together, we'll make this right." But as the nanobot pandemic spread, casting a dark shadow over the world, Ava couldn't help but wonder if the price of progress had grown too steep to bear. Ava's hands trembled as she stared at the holographic map projected before her. The once familiar city now a sprawling labyrinth of infection. The corrupted nanobots had spread like a malevolent fog, enveloping the metropolis in a choking grip of chaos. The sight of the pulsing red dots, each representing an infected individual, sent an icy shiver down her spine. She clenched her fists, her nails biting into her palms. "I can't let this continue. I have to find a cure." The determination in her voice belied the turmoil churning within her. With a deep breath, Ava reached for her coat and stepped out into the desolate streets. The air was thick with the acrid scent of decay, a constant reminder of the monstrous creations lurking in the shadows. Her footsteps echoed through the deserted alleys, her heart pounding in her chest. As Ava navigated the treacherous cityscape, she couldn't help but recall the days when her nanobots had promised hope and progress. Now, they had become a twisted parody of their original purpose, a harbinger of doom. Ava's thoughts were interrupted by a faint glimmer of light in the distance. She quickened her pace, her heart leaping with hope. The familiar sign of the research facility came into view, a beacon amidst the darkness. She knew that within those walls lay the knowledge and resources she needed to reverse the devastation wrought by her creations. She swiped her access card, the door sliding open with a hiss. The sterile, white corridors stood in stark contrast to the chaos outside, a sanctuary from the madness. But as she stepped inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into the heart of the storm. Ava's footsteps faltered as she approached the lab where she had once worked side by side with her dear friend and colleague, Dr. Rajiv Patel. The memories of their shared triumphs and setbacks flooded her mind, a bittersweet reminder of the bond they had forged in the pursuit of scientific progress. She paused at the door, hesitating for a moment before steeling herself and stepping inside. The sight of Rajiv hunched over his microscope, his brow furrowed in concentration, brought a small, sad smile to her lips. He looked up as she entered, his eyes widening in surprise. "Ava," he breathed, a mixture of relief and concern etched across his face. "What are you doing here?" She met his gaze, her resolve unwavering. "I need your help, Rajiv. Together, we can find a way to stop this." Rajiv studied her for a moment, his warm brown eyes filled with a quiet understanding. He nodded slowly, a small smile of determination playing at the corners of his lips. "Of course, Ava. We'll find a solution. Together." As they stood side by side, gazing at the holographic models of the nanobots, Ava felt a glimmer of hope. Together, they would unravel the twisted code that had unleashed this nightmare, and perhaps find redemption amidst the ruins. But as the hours ticked by and the shadows lengthened, the weight of their task grew heavier, the darkness pressing in on them from all sides. As Ava stared into the swirling maelstrom of the corrupted nanobots, she couldn't help but wonder if the price of progress had become too great to bear. The cityscape lay in ruins, a twisted labyrinth of shattered glass and rusted steel. Dr. Ava Caldwell clenched her fists, her knuckles white against the cold metal of the railing. The once thriving metropolis had become a breeding ground for the grotesque creations born of her own ambition. Beside her, Dr. Rajiv Patel's eyes scanned the horizon, his brow furrowed in concern. "We can't do this alone, Ava," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "We need help if we're going to navigate this nightmare and find a cure." Ava's piercing blue eyes met Rajiv's warm gaze, and she nodded solemnly. "I know someone. He's an ex-military operative, a man with experience in surviving the unimaginable." Mason Mace Reynolds stood before them, his salt and pepper hair cropped short, his jaw set in determination. The scars that marked his body were a testament to the battles he'd faced, and the weight of countless lives lost lingered in the depths of his eyes. As he agreed to join their cause, Ava felt a glimmer of hope. Together, they would face the horrors unleashed by the corrupted nanobots and forge a path to redemption. Mace's voice was gruff as he began their training, his words clipped and precise. "You're scientists, not soldiers. But if you want to survive out there, you'll need to learn a few tricks." He demonstrated a series of self-defense moves, his movements swift and efficient. Ava and Rajiv followed his lead, their muscles straining as they pushed themselves to adapt to this new, brutal reality. As the days turned into weeks, the trio delved deeper into the city's dark underbelly. Ava's mind raced, her thoughts consumed by the intricate dance of the nanobots, the twisted code that had unleashed this plague. Rajiv remained steadfast at her side, his calm presence a constant reminder of the compassion that had driven them both to pursue this dangerous path. Their first significant challenge came in the form of a twisted, snarling horde. The monstrosities that had once been human beings now moved with an unnatural grace, their bodies contorted and reshaped by the corrupted nanobots. Ava's heart raced as Mace barked orders, his voice a steady anchor amidst the chaos. They fought with a desperate intensity, their makeshift weapons clashing against the grotesque forms of their attackers. Ava's breath came in ragged gasps as she struggled to keep pace, her mind racing with the knowledge that each of these creatures was a testament to her failure, a living embodiment of the consequences of her unchecked ambition. As they narrowly escaped the clutches of the horde, the true horror of the nanobot pandemic settled upon them like a suffocating shroud. The darkness seemed to press in from all sides, the weight of their task growing heavier with each step. Ava stared into the abyss, her resolve unwavering as she vowed to right the wrongs she had unleashed upon the world. Together, they would venture deeper into the heart of the darkness, their path illuminated by the flickering flame of hope. And perhaps, amidst the ruins, they would find the key to unraveling the twisted code that had brought the world to its knees. But for now, they pressed on, their footsteps echoing through the desolate cityscape as they faced the nightmare born of their own creation. The makeshift base hummed with the quiet intensity of a group on the brink of a breakthrough. Dr. Ava Caldwell, her colleague Dr. Rajiv Patel, and their new ally, Mace Reynolds, pored over data and blueprints strewn across the worn table. The air was thick with the scent of stale coffee and the weight of unspoken fears. Mace's voice cut through the tension, his words clipped and precise. "We need more resources, more manpower. We're in over our heads here." Ava's gaze drifted to the window, the once vibrant city now a twisted, grotesque shadow of its former self. Her reflection stared back at her, eyes filled with a steely determination. She turned to face Mace and Rajiv, her voice steady. "I know someone who can help us navigate this technological nightmare. Elena Eli Martinez, a hacker with unparalleled skills." With a curt nod, Mace agreed. "And I know a survivor who can help us stay alive in this hellish landscape. Sasha Ivanov, she's a force to be reckoned with." As they set out to recruit their new allies, Ava's thoughts swirled with the enormity of their task. Each step deeper into the city was a dance with death, the corrupted nanobots lurking in every dark corner. They found Eli in the remains of a once bustling tech hub, her fingers flying across a keyboard as she navigated the digital battlefield. Ava approached, her voice filled with urgency. "Eli, we need your help. The nanobots, they're out of control." Eli's dark eyes flicked up, meeting Ava's with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. "What's in it for me?" Ava hesitated, then leaned in, her voice barely a whisper. "A chance to expose the truth behind this pandemic and bring those responsible to justice." With a slow nod, Eli agreed, her fingers never ceasing their dance across the keyboard. Sasha proved to be a more formidable challenge, her lean, athletic frame perched atop a crumbling building, eyes scanning the horizon for threats. Mace approached, his tone gruff but respectful. "Sasha, we need your skills to survive this. You're the best there is." Sasha's piercing blue eyes narrowed, her voice filled with skepticism. "And why should I trust you?" Mace met her gaze, his own eyes filled with a steely resolve. "Because I know what it's like to lose everything, and I won't let that happen again." With a curt nod, Sasha agreed, joining their ranks with a quiet determination. Together, the group delved deeper into the city, their path leading them to a hidden underground lab. The air grew colder, the scent of decay and metal heavy on their tongues. As they ventured further, they discovered evidence of corporate sabotage, the name Victor Sterling, Ava's bitter rival, etched into the very core of the lab. Ava's heart raced as she stared at the proof before her, the enormity of the betrayal sending a chill down her spine. The ghosts of her past haunted her every step, the weight of her responsibility growing heavier with each revelation. As they stood in the heart of the hidden lab, the truth began to unravel, the twisted code of the nanobots leading them down a dark and treacherous path. With Eli's technical expertise and Sasha's street-smart resilience, they would navigate the dangerous cityscape, determined to expose the truth and put an end to the nanobot pandemic once and for all. But the shadows grew darker, the corrupted nanobots lurking in every corner, eager to claim more victims. The group pressed on, their resolve unwavering as they faced the nightmare born of their own creation, their footsteps echoing through the desolate cityscape like a solemn dirge. Dr. Ava Caldwell's heart pounded as she and her team huddled in the dimly lit basement of the abandoned police station. The air was thick with tension, the only sound the distant echoes of the nanobot-infected horde's guttural growls. Officer Grant Mitchell, who had been their guide and ally, paced restlessly before them. His eyes darted nervously to the entrance, beads of sweat glistening on his brow. In that moment, Ava's intuition sparked a flicker of doubt. A sudden crackle of static from Mitchell's radio broke the silence. A deep, menacing voice echoed through the speaker. "Mitchell, have you secured them?" Ava's blood ran cold as Mitchell's eyes met hers, a flicker of regret and desperation in their depths. "I had no choice," he whispered, his voice laced with anguish. "You sold us out?" Mace's voice was low and deadly, his hand instinctively reaching for the weapon at his side. Mitchell's expression hardened, a steely resolve replacing the fear in his eyes. I made a deal with Sterling. In exchange for my cooperation, he'll ensure my family's safety. Ava's mind raced, her thoughts a whirlwind of anger, betrayal, and despair. She locked eyes with Mitchell, her voice steady and cold. I trusted you, Officer Mitchell. I believed in you. Mitchell's gaze faltered, his jaw clenched tight. I'm sorry, Dr. Caldwell. I truly am. But I can't let my family become collateral damage in this war. As the weight of Mitchell's betrayal settled upon them, a cacophony of snarls and screeches erupted outside the basement door. The corrupted nanobots had found their scent. Time was running out. With grim determination, Ava turned to her team, her eyes filled with resolve. We have to move. Now. Together, they crept through the dark, dank corridors of the police station, their path illuminated only by the flickering emergency lights. As they navigated the treacherous cityscape, the stench of decay and the ever-present threat of the infected loomed over them like a dark cloud. Ava's mind was a storm of turmoil, her thoughts consumed by the revelation of Sterling's treachery. The man who had once been her mentor, her rival, had orchestrated this nightmare in his insatiable quest for power. As they pressed on, Ava's determination hardened into unbreakable resolve. She would confront Sterling, expose his treachery, and put an end to the nanobot plague, no matter the cost. The journey was fraught with danger, the corrupted nanobots lurking in every shadow, their twisted forms a grotesque mockery of humanity. But Ava and her team were relentless, their mission driving them forward through the darkness. They encountered pockets of survivors along the way, their faces etched with desperation and hope. Ava's heart ached as she recognized the weight of her responsibility, the burden of her creation. But she refused to succumb to despair, her unwavering resolve fueling her every step. As they drew closer to Sterling's stronghold, the obstacles grew more formidable. The nanobot-infested cityscape seemed to come alive, the very air crackling with malevolent energy. But Ava and her team pressed on, their determination unwavering in the face of overwhelming odds. In the depths of the city's dark underbelly, they would confront Sterling and bring an end to the nightmare he had unleashed upon the world. And as they faced the ultimate test, Ava vowed that she would make amends for her past mistakes, no matter the cost. Together, they would fight to reclaim their world from the clutches of the corrupted nanobots, and in the process, Ava would find redemption. The darkness may have seemed insurmountable, but Ava and her team were determined to bring the light back to their shattered world. A once pristine research lab now lay in ruins, shattered glass and twisted metal littering the floor. The acrid stench of smoke and singed electronics hung heavy in the air, a grim testament to the ambush that had left Dr. Ava Caldwell's team reeling. Damn it! Ava's voice trembled with anger and despair as she surveyed the devastation. Her fingers clenched and unclenched, her nails biting into her palms. Patel, Eli, they can't be gone. Mason Mace Reynolds, a grizzled ex-military operative, stood beside her, his face a stoic mask. We'll get them back, Dr. Caldwell, he assured her, his voice steady and resolute. But first, we need to regroup and assess the situation. Sasha Ivanov, a street-smart survivor, emerged from the shadows, her eyes wide with fear. Dr. Caldwell, Mace, I overheard Sterling's men talking. They're planning to deploy their weaponized nanobots. If they succeed, the world, it'll be lost. Ava's heart sank, the weight of her responsibility crushing her like a ton of bricks. The very technology she had created to better humanity now threatened to destroy it. She sank to her knees, her thoughts racing. I should have seen this coming. I should have anticipated Sterling's betrayal. But no. I was blinded by my own ambition, my own arrogance. Mace knelt beside her, his hand on her shoulder. Dr. Caldwell, we can't afford to lose hope now. We need you. Patel and Eli need you. Ava looked up, her piercing blue eyes filled with determination. She would not let her friends down. She would not let the world fall to ruin. You're right, Mace. We have to fight. For Patel. For Eli. For everyone. She rose to her feet, her resolve unwavering. We'll find a way to stop Sterling and his nanobots. I swear it. Mace nodded, a glimmer of approval in his eyes. That's the Dr. Caldwell I know. Now, let's gather what supplies we can and get moving. Time is not on our side. As they sifted through the wreckage, Ava's thoughts turned to Patel and Eli. She could only imagine the horrors they were facing, and the guilt gnawed at her. But she refused to let it consume her. Instead, she would use it as fuel, driving her forward in their desperate quest to save their friends and the world from Sterling's twisted machinations. The darkness may have seemed insurmountable, but Ava and her team were determined to bring the light back to their shattered world. And as they faced the ultimate test, Ava would find redemption, or die trying. In the dimly lit hideout, Dr. Ava Caldwell's weary eyes widened in disbelief as Officer Grant Mitchell stepped out from the shadows, flanked by a disheveled Dr. Rajiv Patel and a visibly relieved Elena Eli Martinez. Ava's heart pounded with a mix of apprehension and hope. "Officer Mitchell," she stammered. "What? How?" Mitchell's gaze was heavy with remorse. "I made a terrible mistake, Dr. Caldwell. I couldn't live with myself knowing I'd betrayed you all, and worse, that I'd condemned Patel and Eli to that." Dr. Caldwell's mind raced, grappling with the implications of Mitchell's confession. She felt a glimmer of hope, but the darkness of their predicament still loomed large. Her voice was steady as she asked, "Do you know where Sterling's research facility is?" Mitchell nodded. "I can lead you there, but it won't be easy. His security forces are on high alert, and his weaponized nanobots, they're nearly ready for deployment." The words sent a shiver down Ava's spine. She glanced at her team, their faces a reflection of her own grim determination. With renewed purpose, she turned back to Mitchell. "Then we have no time to waste. We'll launch an assault on Sterling's facility and put an end to this nightmare once and for all." As they prepared for the daring mission, Ava's thoughts swirled. The weight of responsibility threatened to crush her, but she couldn't allow it. Not now. She had to remain focused, to lead her team through this treacherous landscape and stop Sterling before it was too late. The night air was thick with tension as they approached the imposing research facility. Its monolithic structure loomed ominously against the dark sky, a twisted testament to the misguided ambition that had brought them to this point. Ava clenched her fists, her resolve unwavering. They would succeed in this mission, or die trying. With Mitchell guiding the way, they navigated the maze-like corridors, evading patrols and disarming traps. They moved like shadows, their every step a calculated risk. As they drew closer to the heart of the facility, the air grew heavy with the hum of malevolent technology. Ava could feel the weight of the weaponized nanobots pressing down on her, a tangible reminder of the horror they sought to prevent. Finally, they reached the control room. Sterling stood before them, a maniacal grin spreading across his face as he surveyed the carnage he had wrought. "Ava, my dear," he sneered, "you're too late. My nanobots will usher in a new era, a world free from the weaknesses that have plagued humanity for so long." Ava's fury boiled over, but she kept her voice steady. "You're delusional, Sterling. Your twisted ambition will only bring about destruction and suffering." She turned to her team, their faces a mix of determination and fear. "We have to stop him, before it's too late." As one, they charged forward, launching themselves into a desperate, climactic battle against Sterling and his security forces. The air was filled with the cacophony of clashing bodies and the whirring of advanced weaponry. Through the chaos, Ava fought her way to Sterling, her heart pounding with the knowledge that the fate of the world rested in her hands. She would not fail. With a final burst of strength, she tackled Sterling, sending them both crashing to the floor. As they struggled, she reached for the control panel, her fingers fumbling for the switch that would neutralize the weaponized nanobots. In that moment, time seemed to slow. Ava's heart raced, her breath came in ragged gasps, and the weight of the world pressed down on her. And then, with a final, desperate effort, she flipped the switch. The hum of the nanobots ceased, replaced by a deafening silence. Ava's chest heaved with relief as she looked into Sterling's defeated eyes. They had won. They had stopped the nanobot plague and saved countless lives. But as Ava gazed at the devastation around her, she couldn't help but wonder at the cost. The line between progress and destruction had never been so blurred, and the consequences of their actions would haunt her for the rest of her days. With a heavy heart, she turned to her team, their faces a reflection of her own weariness and resolve. Together, they would face the challenges that lay ahead, determined to rebuild and ensure that such a technological nightmare never happened again. The once thrumming city lay eerily still, a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered glass. The air tasted of ash and desolation, a bitter reminder of the price they had paid for ambition. Dr. Ava Caldwell stood amidst the ruins, her heart heavy with the weight of responsibility. She turned to Dr. Rajiv Patel, his warm brown eyes reflecting the same sorrow that gnawed at her soul. "The pulse," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Did it work?" He nodded, his expression somber. "It did. The corrupted nanobots have been eradicated." Ava released a shuddering breath, her body trembling with the force of her relief. But as she surveyed the devastation around her, she couldn't help but feel the crushing burden of guilt. The line between progress and destruction had never been so blurred, and the consequences of her unchecked ambition now lay in ruins at her feet. Her mind reeled with images of the past, the excitement of groundbreaking discoveries, the pride of pushing the boundaries of science, the thrill of accolades and recognition. But those memories seemed distant and hollow now, overshadowed by the grotesque reality of her creation run amok. She thought of the countless lives that had been lost, the innocent people who had been transformed into monstrous shells of their former selves. And she thought of the survivors, those who had been spared the horror but were left to navigate the treacherous wasteland that their city had become. As she gazed at the devastation, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was her doing, her failure, and it was her duty to make it right. Ava turned to her team, their faces etched with weariness and determination. "We will rebuild," she declared, her voice strong and resolute. "We will ensure that such a technological nightmare never happens again." Dr. Patel placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, his eyes filled with unwavering support. "Together," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. Together, they would face the challenges that lay ahead. Together, they would rise from the ashes and forge a new path, one that balanced the pursuit of progress with the responsibility to protect humanity from the unchecked darker side of scientific ambition. And as Ava Caldwell looked out onto the ruined cityscape, she vowed that she would never again lose sight of the true cost of her creations. For the sake of the future, she would carry the weight of her past mistakes and strive to make amends, one step at a time. In the distance, the first rays of dawn began to break through the darkness, casting a faint glimmer of hope across the devastated landscape. It was a new day, a chance to start anew and rebuild from the ashes. And as the sun rose, Dr. Ava Caldwell stood resolute, her determination unwavering, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead and ensure that the horrors of the past would never be repeated.